So it's all getting down to the nitty gritty now. We have Manchester City against Arsenal on Sunday, and I actually think this could be the biggest game we have seen for both of these teams in the last definitely 2 years, but potentially 5 years. I think in terms of the trajectory that both of these clubs are on and the way they're going, and I actually think it's probably bigger for Arsenal than it is for Manchester City moving forward, but I still think it's absolutely huge. If we put into the context that this game will probably have a serious impact on who goes on to win the Premier League title, I'm very reluctant to say it's the title decider, only because we were in this situation, when was it, 22-23, where City, I think, were 5 points behind Arsenal and they had 2 games in hand. And obviously they thwacked them at the Etihad, winning 4-1, and that moved them 22 points behind, and they obviously went on to very, very easily win the title. My point is, I just believe that this time, I think Arsenal are a lot more experienced in this situation. Yes, we're starting to see a tiny bit of cracking, but I do think that Manchester City as well have their own set of issues, which is, well, becoming a problem. They seem to have put them away for the time being, but we have seen that they can be caught out. They can be played against, like games against West Ham. Who else they dropped points against? Nottingham Forest at home. They went ahead twice in that game and ended up drawing. So I do think there's possibilities here for both sides still to slip up even after this game. But I think this is going to be absolutely pivotal. Now, if you look at the two sides, Manchester City obviously come into this on way better form. They won the last meeting with Arsenal, but they haven't beaten Arsenal at the Etihad since that game that I talked about earlier in April 2023 when they won 4-1. It was a 0-0 draw in 23-24, and it was obviously a cracking game last season, 2-2 at the Etihad. What a game that was. I do think that this time around, City going into it will be favourites. This is coming off the back of the Carabao Cup final, obviously, where they won 2-0 pretty comprehensively in the end. Arsenal really didn't show up in that game, and it was a very, very poor performance. Where Arsenal didn't turn up in the game, and Manchester City took the most of that, took the advantage of it, and ultimately went on to win the tournament, and they fully deserved it on that day. This time, though, I do think it'll be a bit different. City obviously are smelling blood. They're coming off the back of a massive 3-0 win against Chelsea. It's moved them to within 6 points of Arsenal, and they still have a game in hand. But before they even play that game in hand, they can narrow that gap down to 3. And before they even play that game in hand, they could also be top of the table because they play Burnley midweek next week, and Arsenal don't have a game midweek. So it's pivotal. It really is. Arsenal, the football has been really dire recently. Performances haven't been great. They've been getting by. 3 losses in their past 4. They drew against Sporting, obviously, so actually it's 3 losses in their past 5. Still not convincing. And last night didn't really do anything to quell my nerves in terms of how we're playing football. It still seems very lethargic, not much really happening going forward. You know, we used to have this system where our fullbacks would invert, they'd take the ball on the half turn and they'd directly look to play. Now it just looks like we go wide, we come back on ourselves, we go wide again, try and work it across the pitch, do exactly the same thing on the opposite flank. And there's no real individuality, there's no real creative spark, no threat. I thought Eze looked really good last night, and then he was hooked, which I couldn't really understand, but if we're saving him for Sunday, then that's fine. I mean, the job was kind of already done, and at that point you just need to see it out and make sure you don't concede. But where is that quality, that individual spark going to come from? Because although we have some world-class players on the pitch, I don't think there's anyone that Manchester City can produce, you know, like a Phil Foden or a Semenyo or a Ryan Cherky or a Jeremy Doku or an Erling Haaland in the attacking third of the pitch that's going to come up with something. Whether Saka comes back in time remains to be seen. Whether Odegaard comes back in time remains to be seen. Noni Madueke obviously picked up an injury last night, and that's very worrying. So we could potentially see either Gabriel Jesus or Max Dowman on the right wing at the Etihad on Sunday. I'm going to lean towards Gabriel Jesus there because I don't think Arteta will throw Dowman in from the beginning, because that would be a pretty tough baptism of fire. But at the same time, I do think that Arsenal, just as a system, will probably play for the draw, and that's what worries me. I think we have to go to the Etihad with the mindset of winning. We have to go there, try and stamp our authority, because if we play for a draw like we have done in previous seasons, I think last season was a real example of a team playing to win. We did play to win. We were 2-1 up at half time. Trossard obviously gets sent off for a stupid kicking the ball away. Don't know what he was doing. And we defend with 10 men behind the ball for pretty much 44 minutes before City stick it in the net in the final minute to take a point. The year before that, we played for a draw. We got a draw, but it still was a pretty deathly dull game. And I'm pretty sure City were playing for a draw as well. The year before that, we also played for a draw. And look what happened there. We got absolutely demolished. We have to go there with the intention to win. And I do think that we can win. I'm very serious about that. I think we are able to catch City on the break, but we need to take the handbrake off. We can't go there and just sit back, let them have the ball, because inevitably something will happen that gives them an opportunity to put the ball in the back of the net. We need a midfield with Eze and Rice who are free to create and roam the park. We need Martinelli, Madueke if he plays, potentially Saka, to have the confidence to take on their man, to create something. Gyökeres needs to be a battering ram up front. Havertz needs to drop deep if he comes on in a 9 position and play those balls into the likes of Madueke and Martinelli. We can't just keep relying on play it down the flank, come back, cross the pitch, play it down the flank, come back, cross the pitch. It doesn't work. City's defence can be got at. Our defence is much better, but their attack is what worries me, because they are so cohesive as a unit at the moment, and it's really starting to scare me. In terms of how this impacts the trajectories of both teams, it does feel very much that this is a pivotal moment, and we'll start with Man City. Obviously, this has been a bit of a rebuild for Guardiola, and I think it's probably the first time, notably in his career, that we can say he's rebuilt a side. And that's not me being disrespectful, but if you look at Barcelona, he had a very, very settled team for his 3-4 years. Bayern Munich, again, he had a very, very settled team for 3-4 years. Manchester City, he inherits a pretty average side. They finished 4th in the Premier League in 15-16, and they finished 4th again in his first season. Didn't really do much, but after he got his players in the door, it was just pure domination. And they've had that core group of players for a long time. You know, the likes of Kyle Walker, Kevin De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, who is announced today he's leaving the club at the end of the season. What a loss that will be for them. Aguero for the periods he was there. Raheem Sterling, Ruben Dias, John Stones, all of those type of players who were there the whole time. And obviously he's lost a lot of that core group, and he's had to rebuild by bringing in players like Jeremy Doku, Ryan Cherky, Semenyo, Mark Gahey, Nico Gonzalez. And it feels very, very huge for him personally, and also just for City, because this is a new group. We obviously have an old core, the likes of Haaland, Ruben Dias, Bernardo Silva, Rodri. They've all been there and done it before. But the likes of Semenyo, Cherky, Gahey are unproven in the Premier League. And for them to get across the line and win the first title, it does feel as though if it were to go City's way, you could end up in a period where there is complete and utter domination again. But on the same side, the same trajectory as Arsenal, it really does feel like this 5-year plan that Arsenal have been on, this process, has come to a head. This is the season where everything is meant to click into place. And I feel like if they miss the boat this time, that will probably be it. I don't know how long Arsenal can justifiably hold on to players like Declan Rice, justifiably hold on to players like Gabriel, Saliba, Saka. I mean, less him because he grew up in the club, but you know, players of that top quality, if they can't put the trophies on the table to justify it. Do I think they'd leave immediately? No, 100% not. But I do think it does start to creep into their minds, whereby they're going to be, is this really where I can be successful and fulfill my potential as a player? At the same time, if it comes off well for Arsenal, and Arsenal win the title, they win on Sunday first and foremost, but they win the title, I do think there is an element of this Arsenal team that is able to dominate for years. I think we talk about it all the time, and it's why the Carabao Cup final was so underwhelming and such a massive hit. Because I feel like once this group gets its first proper trophy under its belt, it will just unlock something in them that enables them to relax a bit more in situations like this and not sort of worry about it because they know that they've got it in them to go out there and win major silverware. And at the moment, it feels like they're really timid and just worried and trying to crawl over the line. So I think, ultimately, I think whatever happens, and this is my opinion, and I might be completely wrong, but I think Arteta has run his course as Arsenal manager. Whatever happens. If we get to the end of the season, he doesn't win the league, I think he goes anyway. If we get to the end of the season and he wins the league, yes, cool, keep him, fine. He's done it. That's brilliant. But I also do feel like he's done the journey. He has taken this side from where we were really struggling down in, mid-table COVID era to winning the league title, competing in the Champions League again. And I'm eternally grateful for that. I really am. But I just feel as though it then comes down to you need a man to build a dynasty, and it doesn't feel as though Mikel Arteta is that guy. And I may be completely wrong. But I'm just starting to get this feeling as though we need a manager of higher quality who's been there and done it consistently at the highest level to really, really get the best out of this group. And I'm not saying that Arteta can't do that, but there are worrying signs, and I think the style of play is one of them. I don't understand how we can have this much attacking quality in our team and still play with the handbrake off. And the defence we have as well. If we play with the handbrake off and you get caught on the counter-attack, it happens in football. But with the defence we have, I wouldn't be as worried as other teams maybe would in that situation. I don't know. It's just me. But at the same time, you've got to look at the positives. 6 points clear in the Premier League. This game on Sunday is absolutely massive. We can go 9 points clear. They only have a game in hand that takes them to 6. That point, you can't relax. Obviously not, but things start to look a lot brighter. Champions League semi-final as well against Atletico Madrid. Obviously, we've played them already this season. Absolutely played them off the park in that second half, but you've got to remember that it was 0-0 until the 60th minute. So they can definitely cause us problems, and Alvarez was a real danger. We have to go away to the Metropolitano first, and then we come back to the Emirates for the second leg, which is a very, very good thing. And obviously we earned that by finishing top of the league phase. But yeah, I think this end of the season is going to be difficult for both teams, for Arsenal and Manchester City. But I do believe that Sunday is an absolutely pivotal moment for both of them. So we'll have to see how it goes. Do I think Arsenal win? I'm not sure, but I believe they can go there and win. That's the point.